just in time for to learn about Shavuos. And today, Davka, today. So today is called Yom Yichus. Okay, Bet Sivan, the second day of Sivan, is called Yom Yichus. Oh, wait, before we start, let me just, okay. I'd like to dedicate the shir for the refuah shlema of Hila bat Ilana, Aliza Chana bat Naomi, Shalom Dovber ben Saraita, and Bat Yafredel bat Yosefa. Anybody else? Bracha bat Rosalind. And, sorry, one more name. My friend sent me a message yesterday that his nephew, his amazing nephew, that's what he wrote, was injured in Lebanon by a suicide drone. It appears not to be life-threatening, but please add him to your tefillot for a full and speedy recovery. Eliezer Shaul ben Rachel Frumit. They should all have refuah shlema. Okay. So today's called Yom Yichus. So I have some psukim, and this, Baruch Hashem, this was one of those shiurim that just kind of came together. So we'll start, the psukim are not consecutive. So the first one is pasuk, it's like from the beginning of the whole story of Kabbalah's Torah, and then the next two are a few psukim later, okay? I have it marked on your sheet there, source number 1.
According to Chazal, this is the day they were supposed to come to Eretz Yisrael.
Okay. בחודש השלישי לצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים, ביום הזה באו מדבר סיני. Okay, so we learned from Chazal, right? Rosh Chodesh Sivan yesterday was the day, the third month from Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that was the day that they came to Har Sinai. And then we skip a few psukim, and then Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. So Hashem, right? This is like the lead up to Kabbalah Torah. This is already after Am Yisrael say Naaseh, right? We don't actually hear Naaseh v'nishma until the parsha after, but this is in Parshas Yisro. We say Naaseh, and the whole mechanism begins to churn. And Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, right? Hashem says to Moshe, Lech el ha'am, go to the nation, v'kidashtam hayom u'machar, and make yourselves, sanctify yourselves today and tomorrow. V'kibsu simlotam, and wash your clothing, do your laundry, so that you'll be, nice and shiny for Kabbalah Torah. V'hayu nechonim leyom hashlishi, and be ready for the third day. Ki b'yom hashlishi yered Hashem le'enei kol ha'am al Har Sinai, because on the third day, and this is Hashem saying this, right? The Yud Ke Vav Ke, that the Hashem Hashem will come down onto the a mountain in front of the eyes of the entire nation. Okay, so we have between Rosh Chodesh, we have two dates that are being spoken about here. Okay, we have Rosh Chodesh, and then we have these 3 days, and on the third day, they should be ready. Okay. So we have, our first source is the Tzemach Tzaddik of Vizhnitz, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vizhnitz. I'm going to read from the source so that I have the nikudot correct, because as always, we never know how they're going to scan. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'hakol niyeh bidbaro. Okay. Tam lashevach, lama nikra yom beis sivan, yom hamiyuchas. Okay, so there's a beautiful reason why we call today, the 2nd of Sivan, Yom HaMiyuchas. What does Yom HaMiyuchas mean? Yeah. Okay, so there's really two meanings, okay? A day that has yichus, okay? So meaning, yichus means like lineage, right? Heritage, your inheritance, like your, right? In the old days, they used to say, that if someone had yichus, it meant that they come from a line of chashuv people, right? Rabbanim, or, whatever leaders of communal leaders, or they have a known line of heritage, okay? That would be impressive. There's a famous story, oh my gosh, it just came to my head, I'm not gonna even remember. There's a famous story about that's funny, actually. We're doing a lot of Rishon today, so it's good that it came to my mind. So the grandchild of the Rishoner married the grandchild of the Tzvi Hirsch Rimanov. Okay, Tzvi Hirsch Rebbe Tzvi Hirsch Rimanov was the Talmid of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Rimanov. So Rimanov is like the big Rebbe of Rimanov was Rabbi Menachem Mendel, and then Reb Herschel Rimanov, as he's called, was really like the shamish. He was like a poor orphan, and he came to the Rimanover, but through his total dedication, there's a beautiful story that he used to ask if he could make the bed, set up the bed every night for the Rimanover. The Rimanover was very old and frail and sickly, and he would sleep basically in the base medrash in a special area, and his bed, he had a shamish that would fix his bed every day, like with straw, like mamish. It wasn't like a set bed. It was like they had to, pile up the straw every day a certain way. And the shamish kept on saying to him, no, like only I can set the bed, of the Rebbe. And after, I don't know how much time, a while that he was there, and he used to sweep the base medrash, he used to put the books back in order, he used to do anything that he could to help out. He just so yearned. This is like, he's a kid, he was an orphan, and he came and he was drawn to Chassidus, and he just so much yearned to be a part of it that he kept on asking, can I make the bed? Can I make the bed? And one day the shamish couldn't make it for some reason, and he said to Tzvi Hirsch that you should make it. And the next morning the Rimanover came to his shamish and he said, you didn't make my bed last night. And the shamish was like, oh, sorry, I had to do something and I had to ask. And he said, no, you have to send him to me. I never had a sleep like that before, Now, whether it was a good sleep or it was filled with dreams, there's a little bit of a debate. But anyway, so the Reb Tzvi Hirsch Rimanov actually became the next Rebbe of Rimanov after Rabbi Menachem Mendel. And he's called the Misharet. He used to help the Rimanover. Anyway, so his grandchild married the grandchild of the Rishoner. Now, the Rishoner was the great-grandson of the Maggid of Mezrich. Okay, so he had a very clear line of Yichus. Okay, the Maggid of Mezrich, the Talmid Muvhak, right, the main student of the Baal Shem Tov, the person who took the Hasidic movement, if you want to call it that, to the next level, who was the teacher of the Alter Rebbe and Reb Levi Yitzchak Berditchev and Rabbi Eli Melech of Lezhensk. I mean, this is a very, very, right, a light in Am Yisrael, and the Rishoner is his great-grandson. So when they came to make the shidduch, right, so you're supposed to state your whole line of yichus. So the Rishoner, said, I'm the son of I'm the son of Reb Shalom Shachna of Probisht, who was the son of Reb Avraham the Malach, who was the son of the Rishoner, who was the Rishoner, sorry. The Rishoner was the son of Reb Shalom Shachna of Probisht, who was the son of Reb Avraham the Malach, who was the son of the Maggid. And Reb Tzvi Hirsch Rimanov kind of looked at him, and he said, I have no yichus. I have no yichus, but I was taken in by my relative who was a tailor, and what he taught me was, hopefully I can get this out right. Please Hashem, help me get this out right. He said, what is new, don't ruin, and what is old can be fixed. That's what he said. And the Rishoner said, that's a good enough yichus for me. Wise words. What is old, like what you can fix. But what's new, don't touch. Leave it alone. Anyway, so yichus is right. So there is a type of yichus that is drawn back to Aaron HaKohen, right? And then there's a type of yichus that comes from being new. So that's one explanation for the word miyuchas. Okay, and what's another explanation? Yachasim, relationship. Yeah, yachasim. Okay, relationship. What did you say? Special. Okay, right. I mean, comes from yichus. Connected, right? Connection. Day of connection. That's beautiful. Relationship, connection. Okay. So here's a beautiful reason, he says, for this day being called Yom HaMiyuchas. Ya'an ki hu omed ben shnei meyuchasim, because it stands between two important special dates. Mitzad echad hu Rosh Chodesh Sivan. The first, from one side, it's Rosh Chodesh Sivan, yesterday, the day that Am Yisrael arrived at Har Sinai. I was at a wedding last night, and Baruch Hashem, the date was very, very specifically chosen. And like sometimes the things run late, and you want to make the wedding these days. We have to make the wedding late enough so people who are working can get there, right? It's very uncommon to have a wedding at like noon, right? Back in the old days, they used to make a wedding, and it was in the daytime, and that's how we did it. But now we do it, and it gets closer and closer to sunset. And the Masada Kedushin was Rav Shlomo, and he was saying that the chassan really, really wants to get married on Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So we have to get to that part of the chuppah right away, right? Because it's a very special day. To have your wedding anniversary be Rosh Chodesh Sivan is a special inyan. So on one side we have Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Umitzad hasheni hu Yom Rishon miyamei haGbala. And on the other side is the first day of the 3 days of Hagbala, like we just read, right? That Hashem says, let them be ready for the third day. We'll discuss, there's a machloket in there. We're going to get to it, okay? That's what we're talking about today. Vehu ba'atzmo leis le megar meklum. This day in itself is nothing. Is nothing. Uman dehu zeir hurav. But there's an idea in the Zohar that in the smallness of something is really the greatness of it, right? Meaning, sometimes the smaller something is, it actually is like a light that is a special light that comes from something that seems very small, but is actually very great.
And it actually, because it doesn't have any specific meaning, it has meaning.
Exactly. So it's interesting. I was thinking it's kind of like the doorway, right? So the same way that you put a mezuzah on the doorway, and there are ideas that like the doorway itself is something because it's like ben zeh lezeh, so it has relationship to both things. It almost has like a mixture. It's like a translator in a way, a translator day, right? Between this and this, it itself maybe is nothing, quote unquote. But also in Chassidus, nothing is considered very big, right? Because meaning it's a day that's called a day of anava. It's a day of humility. We're going to get to that when we get to the longer piece. So there's an idea that in its anivus, that, oh no, I'm just the day in between these two things, but it's the bridge between these two things. And so in its like anivus, that's where like the greatness of its light shines.
I just think it's funny because now you're talking about like getting Matan Torah, and it's the same concept also with Har Sinai, that it's like the small mountain.
Totally. So that we're going to get exactly to that, okay? That there's a midah that Am Yisrael have to hold on to, and that is, right, like our kids sing the song, right? Like, I'm a mountain so very tall, I'm a mountain so very wide, I can reach right up to the sky, right? The Torah will be given on me because I'm as high as can be, right? There's a amazing, and then like all the mountains give their like praise. I'm so tall, I'm so filled with flower, whatever. And Har Sinai is like, no, I'm little Har Sinai. Little Har Sinai just stood there and sighed. I know I'm not tall. I know I'm not wide. The Torah can't be given on me because I'm as small as can be. And then of all the mountains, Hashem chose Sinai because it was humble, right? And that's the idea. But the Rebbe always used to point out that even though we're taking the midah of humility from Har Sinai, it's still a mountain. It's still a mountain, right? It's not a valley. It's not called the Valley of Sinai, right? You would think that like, oh, the most humble would be a valley because that's really, nothing. No, so this is the midah that we have to hold on to. That there's a tension of opposites. Okay? On one hand, you have to be like, I'm nothing without Hashem's strength. On the other hand, we are the Am HaNivchar, right? We're the chosen people. We received the Torah. That's an amazing honor and light that has been bestowed upon us. So there's like this tension of opposites of holding the humility and holding the greatness at the same time. So we're gonna really, that's really what this day is, Yom HaMiyuchas. Okay? It is literally that day between two things, holding two things. Okay? Okay, so that was the Tzemach Tzaddik, the Rebbe Menachem Mendel Vizhnitz. Here we have the Rishner. Okay, this is a famous statement by the Rishner, and we're going to learn the main piece that we're going to learn. This B'cha Yivarech Yisrael. Oh, I didn't write his name. Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, I'll tell you about him in a minute. But he was the grandson of the Rishner. Okay, so we have a very Rishon day today. So the Rishner says, okay, Irin Kadishin is the main name of the collected teachings of the Rishner that was put together by his descendants. Ha'olam omrim. No, sorry. Oh, whoops. Sorry. Skip until the comma. No, skip until ha'olam. Sorry. In the book, sometimes they have these like little topic sentences, and I forgot to erase that one. So don't do. Okay, so go to ha'olam omrim. Okay, ha'olam omrim. Lachen nikra yom hazeh yom hamiyuchas. Ki Yom HaKippurim chal b'yom zeh lefi hakvius. Okay, why do we call this day the Yom HaMiyuchas? Because Yom Kippur always falls on the same day of the calendar, the same day of the week, as Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur always falls on the same day as Yom HaMiyuchas, the day of the week. So it's the year that's coming up, meaning Shavuos is like the leader of the year in terms of the Shalosh Regalim. Okay, in our like calendar year, it's the last Chag, but in the calendar of the Chagim, it's actually the first Chag, and Pesach is the last Chag. Okay, so in our Chagim calendar, it really starts on Shavuos, and then we get to Elul, Tishrei, and then we get to Sukkot, and then we get to Pesach. Okay, so I looked on the calendar to make sure that this was true. Okay, so. It's on today is Monday. Yom Kippur this coming year will be on a Monday. Okay, Sunday night Monday. And that's because there's this relationship between Yom HaMiyuchas and Yom Kippur. Now, we're going to let that sentence lay for a minute, okay? Because his grandson's piece is kind of built on that sentence. Okay? And why that makes it be called Yom HaMiyuchas. Okay, but suffice it to say, this day, Beis Sivan, is always the same day of the week as Yom Kippur. Okay. Now, there's a lot of pieces that come together here, okay? Now, there's a famous Gemara and about this day. And we'll read the Gemara, and you'll understand why this day is a little bit, like there's a little bit of a machloket about these days of Sivan. Amar l'cha Rabbi Yossi. Okay, we're in the middle of a conversation. Okay, but Rabbi Yossi says, Yom Echad Hosif Moshe Midato. Right now, we read on the top that Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu. Right, the second pasuk that we read from the top says, "Say to the nation, V'kidashtem Hayom Umachar." Right, sanctify yourselves today and tomorrow. And then it says, and on the third day, Hashem's going to come down to the mountain. Okay? So there's a machloket. How many days are we actually talking about here? Okay? Because Hayom and Machar seems like today and tomorrow, and then on the third day. And yet, when we talk about it, we say Shloshet Yemei Hagbala. 3 days of Hagbala. 3 days of boundary between arrival and Hashem telling Moshe, and Ke'ilu actually like on the fourth day. It almost feels like it's after 3 days, then Hashem comes down, and that's how it works out in our calendar. Okay, so there's like a day that's like kind of added or missing or something like that. Okay, or it's connected, right? So this is the Gemara on that. Okay, Yom Echad Hosif Moshe Medato. Moshe Rabbeinu added a day from his da'as, from his understanding. He took what Hashem said to him, and he said Hayom Umachar. Okay, so let's read what the Gemara says. We'll keep on going. Titania, like it's taught. Shlosha dvarim asa Moshe midato. It says that three things Moshe did from his own understanding. V'hiskima kadosh baruch hu imo. And Hashem put his stamp of approval on it. Hashem agreed with him that Moshe sort of added something or changed something a little bit, and Hashem agreed with him. Hosif yom echad midato, so that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, he added a day. Upeirash min ha'isha, and he separated from his wife. V'shavar et haluchot, and he broke the luchos. Okay, those are the three things that Moshe Rabbeinu, kilu on his own initiative, ki'ilu, right, did these three things. Now, one of the things that we understand about Moshe Rabbeinu is that he's really called like an empty vessel, and that Hashem's word just flowed through him. So, like mida'ato is like a funny thing. Like, did he have even his own mind? Right? Or was it really Hashem's mind, and Hashem enabled Moshe Rabbeinu to become the vessel for that which Hashem really wanted in the first place, but, he sort of gives Moshe Rabbeinu credit for it. Okay? So let's continue with the Gemara. Hosif yom echad midato, ma'idrash. What's this day that Moshe Rabbeinu added? How do we understand this? What's the explanation? Hayom u'machar. So the Torah told us, right, in our pasuk above, Hayom u'machar. Today and tomorrow. And Moshe Rabbeinu heard or teiched out from that, Hayom kimachar. Today like tomorrow. Ma lemachar leilo imo, av hayom leilo imo. So we know that in our calendar, right, the day, quote unquote, starts at the night before, right? So Hashem said this to Moshe Rabbeinu in the daytime. And so he said, just like every single day starts with the night before, so too the first day that Hashem is talking about should really start at night. So ma lemachar leilo imo, so like tomorrow will have a night attached to it, so too the day that Hashem is calling Hayom has to have a night attached to it. So really it didn't start right when Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu. It didn't start immediately. Moshe Rabbeinu waited until that night, and then he said, now we're starting these days. Okay, so it added like a half a day. Right, exactly. Okay? The other thing is, V'layla dehadina nefakle. Okay, I forgot to print out the translation. Maybe you'll help me, Becky. Okay, v'layla dahaidana nefakle, shma mina tre yome levar mehaidana. What's idana? I think he basically added on, right? We hear that he added on, so it's 3. Tre is actually 2, right? But so he added on to that there would be 2 full days after what Hashem told him. I think that's the idea.
The women would not be able to accept the Torah because they wouldn't need God.
Well, that's one idea. Right. That's one idea. Okay, right. That there's 3 days that you have to wait until. Okay, fine. But that's one idea. We're gonna bring a different one. Yeah. Minala dehiski makadosh baruch hu al yado delo shrai shchina ad tzafra deshabta. Okay, so Hashem, and the Gemara tells us that one of the reasons that Hashem agreed onto this is that we see that Hashem, that the Torah is given on Shabbos, okay? And 3 days after, like a full 3 days after when Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu was Shabbos. So that's the kunz, that we know that Hashem agreed because after the 3rd day was Shabbos, and that's when Hashem appeared to Am Yisrael. Okay, so it's like there's an idea that that Yehoshua, right? That Yehoshua stayed a little bit on the mountain, and he received man there. So that was like Hashem showing his haskama that Yehoshua should remain on the mountain, right? By through his actions, through Hashem's actions, he showed that he agreed with Moshe Rabbeinu. That we know all the opinions agree, okay, that the Torah was given on Shabbos. Really? Everybody agrees on that. There are many, many, many different explanations to this added day, and why, and what, and when, and whatever, okay, and how it ended up, and what midato means. But everybody agrees that Shabbos is the day that that the Torah was given. So the Gemara is using this as a proof that, right, that it was 3 full days later, on Shabbos morning. That's when the Torah was given. That's when Hashem's Shechina came down on the mountain, and that was a sign of Hashem agreeing with Moshe. Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, now let's get to the right. So here's the thing: there is no date for Kabbalah. Okay, so in our mind, right, Vav Sivan is Shavuot and Matan Torah, but that's not true. Okay, now the first not true about that is that there's no date for Shavuot in the Torah. Okay, Shavuot is supposed to be on the 50th day after Yitzias Mitzrayim, right? After Mimacharat Yitzias Mitzrayim, right? So we count 49 days, and then the 50th day is Shavuot. Now, when there used to be not a set calendar, so Shavuot actually could fall out on the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th of Sivan, depending on how Rosh Chodesh fell out in different months, okay? So now we have a set calendar. It always falls out on Vav Sivan. But that's not true in the Torah, okay? So there's like a floating day. So if, right, so the tally of the days is kind of like a funny thing, okay? And we're gonna actually learn about that in the piece. Also, the second not true about this is that Shavuot and Matan Torah is not necessarily the same day. Okay, we equate it in our minds and in our tradition because we have a set calendar and because Shavuot is always on Vav Sivan, so we kind of mush the two together. But in the Torah, they're separate things. Shavuot is called Atzeret. That is the end of the counting of the Omer. That's the day that we bring Shtei HaLechem. That's Shavuot. Zman Matan Torah, and we call it Zman Matan Torah, but it's not necessarily according to the calendar, the day that the Torah was given. There is no date for the day that the Torah was given in the Torah. And there's a lot of parshanut on that, including that Rashi says you should feel like you receive the Torah every day, right? It could be that if there was a date, it would be kind of limited to that date. The same way that we don't know where Har Sinai is. Right? We don't know where Har Sinai is. So, it could be that there would be an idea that it's limited to this place, or that this, that there's any kind of limiting factor on Kabbalah Satorah doesn't work. And part of the proof of that is that it was given on Shabbos. And Shabbos is our day that's beyond time.
So where did the source for Torah come from later on?
So it comes from the idea, later on is a relative term, right?
No. Okay.
Right? Because it is the tikkun for the night before receiving the Torah that we went to sleep, right? Once these two things became enmeshed, which was very early on, pretty early on, let's say, thousands of years ago already, then it became tikkun leil Shavuot, but it wasn't,
Right. So maybe when that started, then the whole concept. Okay.
Right. Okay. Because even before we had a set calendar, the times were already. It's obviously it's all happening around the same time, but it's important to note that there's some level of you have to let go of the limits of a specific date. That's kind of part of this. Okay. So that's a very important basis for what we're going to learn next. Okay. So the next piece is based on the Gemara. Okay? And he says, V'ha'inyan tamuha, right? It's very surprising what the Gemara says. That this interesting thing with, that Moshe added a day. Umatzina shekudsha brichu hiskim al yado. Okay, but we see that Hashem agrees. It becomes part of our tradition already, right away, on that first time. Ve'eze yom hosif, but what day was added? Ki shlosha yemei hagbala nichtav b'Torah. We know that there's 3 days of separation, okay? Hagbala means boundaries, right? There were 3 days where they couldn't be with their wives, 3 days where they had to wash their clothing, 3 days where they couldn't go close to the mountain, 3 days where lots of like hagbalas were on them. Okay, lots of limitations, boundaries were put upon Am Yisrael. Me'hechrach ki osif yom hamiyuchas shehu techef achar Rosh Chodesh. So one opinion is that today is the day that Moshe Rabbeinu added, meaning that there should be a day between Rosh Chodesh Sivan and the 3 days of Hagbala that are ki'ilu like laid out in the Torah. This is one opinion, one idea. That Moshe Rabbeinu didn't add one of the 3 days, he added a day before. Why? So that the Torah would be given on Shabbos. That's one opinion, okay? So that we know that those 3 days are already connected to Matan Torah. So there's this like day that, was it one of the 3 days, or was it the day before? We're in this next piece. Okay. Right? Right after the first paragraph. Oh, I didn't tell you who this is. B'cha yivarech Yisrael. That's the name of his sefer. Through you will I bless, will Am Yisrael be blessed. It's part of the brachas for Ephraim and Menashe. Okay? Like we're going to say to all our kids, Ke Ephraim and Menashe. That's from that pasuk, right? And his name was Reb Levi Yitzchak of Yezenia. And he was a grandson of the Rizhiner Rebbe. Okay, now it tickled my fancy that I saw this piece, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's what he's called, because I literally wrote a piece for Torah Tidbits that's coming up. Bezrat Hashem, y'all will read it, and I used this pasuk, B'cha Yivarech Yisrael, and Bezrat Hashem, y'all read it, but I never heard of a sefer called B'cha Yivarech Yisrael, and here it is. So anyway, it was very cute. Okay, second paragraph. Ulahavin ha'inyan. Are you all with me? Do you all understand what we're saying? Okay? That there's this added day that Moshe, there's lots of concepts here, but one of them is that there's this added day, and it's called Yom HaMiyuchas. Or there's an added day, and there's an opinion that it's this day, Yom HaMiyuchas. Okay. Ulahavin ha'inyan. Kesheyatzu Yisrael mimitzrayim, hutzrechu lispor sfirat nikim letaher hamidos. Okay, so we understand from the Torah, we have a mitzvah that from the morning after we left Mitzrayim, right, mimacharat haShabbat, okay, we had a chiyuv to count a counting of cleaning ourselves to purify our midos. V'hine mi shehu betoch hamidot hagam ki hu yashar holech yuchal benakel chas v'shalom lipol mimadregato. Okay, but he says here that it's very interesting though, because midos are emotions, and a person who's in their emotions, even if they're walking straight, there's a possibility that they could fall from the place that they get to. Why? Because they're very emotional, right? The emotions, even though we're like part of our job of counting them, right? The 7 weeks times 7 days, each day is an aspect of our midos. An aspect, and midos is sometimes translated as character traits, but it's also because in the Sfirot, the first 3, Chachma, Bina, and Das, are the intellectual attributes, and the 7 bottom ones are the emotional attributes. Okay, so Chesed, loving kindness, Gevura, boundaries, stricture, those are emotional attributes. Those don't come from the head, they come from the heart. Okay, so part of what we're doing, or the main thing that we're doing during the Sfirat HaOmer, I'm sorry, we didn't have a class on Sfirat HaOmer this year. What can I tell you? Go back and listen to last year's, right? I think we had one last year. But Bezrat Hashem. So part of what we're doing is that we are refining each day a different aspect, a different facet of our midos. Okay? So we're given that task, and we're told really how to do it. But at the same time, once you start getting like being occupied with midos, with emotions, it can be like a bit tricky. Okay? So he says very, very interesting. V'hine Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom haya hadas mikol Yisrael. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu was the smartest, not the smartest, but the most understanding. He had the deepest ability to integrate his head and his heart. That's really what das is, and have like a deeper level of understanding of anyone who ever lived in Am Yisrael. V'hine das hu lemala min hamidos, and das is above the midos. Okay, like in the Sfirot, it's literally above the Midos, because it's something that is more controlled by the brain, and the brain is above the heart. Okay, so that's how man is, right? People stand upright. It's how Hashem made us, and our head is above our heart. So the brain naturally has a capacity to control the heart. It's very hard to do, but it's part of our avoda, right? Not to control, but to focus, to direct our emotions in a healthy direction. And Moshe Rabbeinu had that midah, that ability, that capacity more than anybody else. Umi shehu lamala min hamidos hu yuchal lelech betach. And he said, and someone who has that capacity can walk with more assurity. It's like these days, right? Once you get, like, let's say someone says something and they trigger your something, an emotional reaction from you, right? So a person who has da'as can, like, take a breath and say, okay, I know I'm having an emotional reaction to this. I don't want to react only from my emotions. I want to react in an emotionally healthy way. I was just saying, this is such a funny thing. It's also Rishon. My husband and I were just talking about how there was a Rishner Rebbe who, anytime he had something like harsh to say to somebody, when he had a certain bekasha that he would put on to say that harsh thing, right? So he would never, like, if it came to him to say something like musar, harsh, to like, you know, I don't want to say get angry at someone, but like, you know, seemingly get angry at someone. He calmed down, and he also understood that if he still needed to say that thing to that person, right? Not only had he calmed down, but he understood that if he still felt like that person needed to be told this, then it wasn't coming from his emotional reaction. It was coming from his das. It was coming from the wisdom and the understanding to know that, no, this is actually an important lesson, an important like chinuch, an important educational, a teaching opportunity. Right, exactly. And that's really, so when we're above the midos, we can act with more assurity, with more space. Okay, we're not just like boom, responding, reacting. Okay, we're responding, not reacting. That's a better. Vehine ita, it says in Pirkei Avos, im en das en bina. Okay, if you don't have das, you also don't have bina. If you don't have understanding, you also don't have wisdom. Okay, or if you don't have what's that? Wisdom. How do they? Chachma bina das is. How do they translate it? Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I don't know. The English words don't mean anything. The Hebrew words are very meduyak. They're very exact. Okay, that bina is more of a developmental, like an intellectually developmental process, intellectually developing an idea, and das is applying the idea. Okay, so but if you don't have the das of how to apply an idea, you also it kind of like goes back up, and you also, it means that you didn't have the bina. Okay. V'lachen Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom ya'an haya b'chinat hadas zacha lebina. So because Moshe Rabbeinu had das, it means he also had bina. Kedi'ita hatam Moshe zacha lebina v'zeu sod shar chamishim. Okay, bina is compared to the 50th gate. Okay, that the 50th gate is called bina. That's a known thing in all the Sifrei Panemius Torah. Okay, and that's what we're also getting into, right? Why do we count 40? Why don't we receive the Torah on the 49th day? That's what he's going to say. We don't receive the Torah on the 49th day. We receive the Torah on the 50th day. The 50th is Shari Bina, is this idea of like a deeper and more expansive ability to understand, to develop an idea. Right. We can't reach the 50th by ourselves. We can only count 49, right? We don't count the 50th. That's the mitzvah. We count 49 days. And then there's the 50th day. And that's Hashem giving us the Torah because it has to come from his side. It doesn't come from our side, exactly. Right. Thank you.
We ask Hashem every day when we daven in Shemona Esrei for Deah and Bina. Like every day when we go through our day.
Yeah, exactly. V'hine im hayu. So this is the kunz over here for this piece, this first part. He says three things, so there's three parts. V'hine im hayu Yisrael mikablin haTorah kodem yom echad. So what would happen if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't add that day? Okay, haya b'yom mem tes l'sfira. We actually would have received the Torah on the 49th day. That's how it would have worked out. Isn't that interesting? We would have been still in the working on the emotional, like in the emotional stew of the 49 days. V'chash Moshe Rabbeinu lazeh pen al yedei zeh yuchlu lipol mimadregatam achor. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw that if we were still busy with working on our emotional attributes, then it would be very easy for us to fall. Lachen hosif haro'eh ne'eman yom echad midato. So therefore he added one day from his da'as. What? Yes, totally. It's beautiful, right? Ritzono lomar al yidei shehaya bo hadas v'zachal lebina, because Moshe Rabbeinu had das and he merited bina through that. So he wanted ratzah sheyitalu gam ken lahamadrega hazot kol Yisrael. So he wanted us to also be able to enable us also to get to that level, to lift us up, to be able to receive on that level. Lekabel haTorah lemala min hamidos, to receive the Torah in a place that was higher than the midos. Leman lo yiplu achor v'yalchu b'toras Hashem betach. So we wouldn't fall down, and we would be able to follow, to walk in the ways of the Torah in a more assured way. So that's what we're saying, meaning midato is always put in quotation marks, right? Meaning, that's what I said at the beginning, that Moshe Rabbeinu, of course, is like a hollow vessel, but Hashem kind of gives him credit for it, right? And part of that is that Moshe Rabbeinu himself is this phrase, leis le megarme klum, right? He himself is nothing. He himself was a gateway, a doorway between Am Yisrael and Hashem, right? He's the translator, kavyachol, right? What happens with Am Yisrael? We hear the first two of the Aseres HaDibros from Hashem, and what happens to us? That's it. It's way too intense. With every word, we died, and Hashem put our souls back in us. Hashem said another word. We died. Hashem put our souls back. It was way too intense for us. It needed to go through a mediator. But the only mediator that Torah can ever go through in a pure way was Moshe Rabbeinu, because he was leis legarme migarme klum. He was nothing, except that somehow through Moshe Rabbeinu it became easier for us to handle. And we heard the other eight of I'm like saying 8 in the Ashkenazis. The other 8 of the Aseres HaDibros we heard from Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore we could handle it, because he was the doorway through which it could come from Hashem, from the intensity and kedusha of Hashem, to Am Yisrael, who were like regular people, kavyachol, right? Through the doorway of Moshe Rabbeinu.
But also, if Hashem did everything, then there's no bechira, there's no choices. Last week we did counting of the people. Well, Hashem doesn't know how many people there are. We have to count. Everything that we do is our journey, what we have to do. And we have to be responsible to know that we're counting the right days, that we know how much. Of course, Hashem knows everything, but we have to do the avodah.
Right, there's a part for us, exactly. Kabbalah Satorah, right? Who's there to Mikabel? Right? There's no Kabbalah Satorah with only Hashem, right? Hashem already had the Torah, right? So also we already had the meaning, right? But we makabeled it. So there's a part, right, for us, okay? But isn't that such a cool idea? That if it had not been for this added day that Moshe Rabbeinu added on, then we would have received the Torah on the 49th day, and that's part of the Tikkun Amidos. And maybe we would have not been able to have the expansiveness that we needed. Not obviously, Hashem would have fixed it, right? But like through Moshe Rabbeinu, who had this da'as, so we also, through him, we kind of also received the da'as and the bina, right? Because he opened that doorway for us through his da'as and bina.
Did that have anything to do with the Mem
Yeah, I mean, it's an equal and opposite, for sure. So we were in Mitzrayim. Exactly. Interesting. Right. So, I mean, it says that we almost fell to the 50th gate, right, of Tuma, Shari Tuma, in Mitzrayim. We couldn't. we wouldn't have been able to been taken out of Mitzrayim. Okay, let's keep on going because there's two more big ideas here. Okay. V'ha'inyan, okay? Yeah, those were big, but this is still the same piece by the same person. So he says this all in one piece. Okay, v'ha'inyan, so the last paragraph on the front of the page. Miyom ha'miyuchas, right? The whole idea of Yom ha'miyuchas, this special day, this relational day, connecting day. Amar Admor Avi Adoni Zakeni Mirujin. So, like we read above, that the Ruzhiner says, Ya'an Shechal Yom HaKippurim Bazeh HaYom. That Yom Kippur is always going to fall on the same day of the week as Yom HaMiyuchas. Ukvi HaKvias Me'akayitz Shehu Kasidran Yesh B'chol Shavua V'Shavua Yom Kazeh Shechal Yom HaKippurim Liotbo. But obviously, every day, every week has a day that Yom Kippur is going to fall on that day, right? I mean, Yom Kippur falls on a day of the week. So from Shavuos until Yom Kippur, there's also there's a Monday every week, okay? V'amarhu zecher tzadik livracha l'chayei olam haba mashal al zeh v'zeh l'shano. So this is a great, great mashal, okay? Melech gadol tziva livnot palterin gadol v'chashuv. A big king wanted to build a big and beautiful and important palace. ואחר כך ציווה לבעלי הציורים היותר מובחרים לצייר הדפנות שבו. And he gave the best artisans in the kingdom, right, the ability to paint on the walls. ובחר מהנבחרים 4 מהם שאין דוגמתם. And he chose 4 that there were none like them. וציווה להם לצייר אותו וקבע להם זמן. And he gave them the opportunity to litzayer oto, to paint him, right? Or to paint the walls, sorry. Right, the wall with the mirrors, okay? You could say it either way, right? To paint the walls. To paint specific pictures on the walls. So, right, I have this children's book. Are you talking about this is a famous story? Right, okay. So fine. Kol echad ve'echad me'arbatan lakach lo dofen echad litzayer bo kafi yucholato. Each one took a wall or took a big, canvas, let's say, and he was supposed to paint on it a special, according to his talent, his ability. Laman yisu chen be'enei hamelech, and to please the king. Right? It should be a beautiful painting to please the king, to decorate the palace. V'maharu hadavar leman yugmar lizmano kepkudat hamelech. But they had a specific amount of time, a month, let's say, that they had to finish this painting by. So most of them started right away to have as much time as they could to plan the design and to get it right and to make fixes and changes and whatever. Echad me'arba'a hahem lo asu klum. Lo asa v'lo klum. Okay, he didn't do anything. He didn't plan. He didn't start painting. V'haya b'eineihem lefele, and they were like in wonderment about him. Like, why isn't he doing anything? Kihem achashu v'yitamtzu b'chol kocham la'asot melachtan yafev lizmano. They were working as hard as they possibly could to make to do their work as beautiful as it could be and within the time. V'hu eino oseh klum, and he did nothing. V'hi hayom samuch la'azman, and the day before comes, to the time, the end date, the date that they have to present. Lakach ha'ish hahu aspaklaria tahora hanikra bilshon Ashkenaz spiegelglas. Okay, he took a mirror, right? He took a big piece of glass that reflects. Okay, a mirror. V'yadbek b'chol hadofen shalo merosh ve'ad hasof, and he covered the entire canvas with this mirror. Vehi kasher ba melech lirot melachtan liyom hamugbal, when the king came on the day of presentations to see the paintings, nasachen be'enav melachtan hana'a ve'hayafa. He was pleased with all of the paintings. They were all beautiful. Omnam biyoter nasachen hadofen hahu she'aya ba'aspaklaria. But he loved the most the one that had the mirror on it. Ki bo haya nir'eh kol melechet hayofi shel shloshet hadfanot yachad. Because it mixed all of the other 3. It reflected the beauty of the other 3 paintings. Vehaven. And understand the mashal. And then he says, "V'zehu ha'inyan shel miyuchas." This is the point of miyuchas, of this connection day, Ratzah lomar, Adam shehu bar avahan kadishin, a person who's the son of their holy, son of Hashem. Kasher yom hamiyuchas ba'atzmo hu yom chol pashut. Kasher, let me finish the sentence. Kasher yom hamiyuchas ba'atzmo hu yom chol pashut, v'kodem hu rosh chodesh Sivan, asher bazeh hayom ba'u midbar Sinai. So yom hamiyuchas itself, Beis Sivan, is seemingly a regular day, simple day. It's after Rosh Chodesh Sivan, okay, which is obviously a special day, like all Roshei Chodashim are. And after today, we start. Tomorrow will be the first of the 3 days of separation. And after that will be Shavuos. But today is seemingly this simple day. But it's called important. It's called, like in the first, right? Like your yichus is your connection to important people. So this day is called a Yom HaMiyuchas. It's important because of its connection. Ken Adam shehu bar avhan kadishin v'yodeh ba'atzmo she'eno klum. This is the idea we were talking about before. That this is really how a Jew has to see herself. That I myself am nothing. Like the mirrored canvas that in and of itself it's nothing. It has no painting on it. Az yofia v'yizrachu bo avotav hakadoshim b'maasehem hatovim v'yeh yafeh af na'im kehadofen harek me'as baklaria. And but what happens with this mirror? What shines through it? The other paintings, the beauty of the other paintings. When we make ourselves like that glass, so what shines through us? The deeds of our avos and our imaos. Okay, that they make us more beautiful than the paintings themselves, right? Like my own ability is limited, but when I make myself be like a vessel through which Hashem's light shines through, then it's unlimited. And it's more beautiful. V'lachen nikra yom hamiyuchas ad kan lashon hakodsho. So that's all from the Rishner. Okay, that this day then becomes this like glass through which shines all of the other days. Okay, and it's beautiful, right? So it itself is like pashut, like a glass. Like glass is pashut. Glass even like in the mashal it's a mirror, but glass itself is what we're talking about, right? That glass doesn't have a color. Real, clear glass doesn't have a color. What comes through it is what's held inside of it. Its ability to present, something something can shine through it. I love also the idea of like a prism, right? Like crystal, right? What makes a diamond so beautiful? That the light shines, it's not the diamond itself, it's that it reflects the light. So this day, Yom HaMiyuchas is Ke'ilu Pashut, but it's reflecting the beauty of the other days, and that it enhances their beauty, and therefore it in itself becomes beautiful. It's beautiful, right? Okay, and then the last idea. V'hine ya'an Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom lo haya nechshav be'enav klum. Okay, so that's what Moshe Rabbeinu was. He didn't think anything of himself. K'moshe amar v'nachnu ma, right? He says, what are we? And what's pointed out in Chassidus is it doesn't even say anachnu ma. Like kilu, there's no aleph in the word nachnu. Like there's no aleph, there's no I, there's no ani. It's nachnu ma, right? There's no me. What are we? Right, but without the aleph. Lachen hosifhu hayom hamiyuchas hahu midato kanal. So therefore, he was the person. It had to come from Moshe Rabbeinu, this yom hamiyuchas, okay, because he contains that midah of shiflus, of anava, of reflecting of reflecting Hashem's beauty, really, but all of Am Yisrael's beauty also, right? In between the psukim that we have on our sheets is that Hashem, is that Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, like, go say this to the nation, and then the nation says, naaseh, right? We will do. And Moshe goes and tells Hashem, what, like Hashem didn't hear them? He didn't know what they said? No, but Moshe Rabbeinu goes to tell it to Hashem because he's reflecting the beauty of Am Yisrael to Hashem so that it enhances the beauty. Isn't this amazing, Hashem? Look at what they said. They said, Naaseh. They said, Naaseh. That's their first response, Naaseh. And so Moshe Rabbeinu's aspaklaria, Nahora, right? His clear glass, his clear reflection of Am Yisrael's response enhanced the beauty of Am Yisrael's response. And only Moshe Rabbeinu could do that. Ve'akadosh Baruch Hu lo tziva mitchila lazeh. Hashem didn't, command this from the beginning. Ya'anhu yisbarach v'yitzaleh tzofeh u'mabit me'reishis acharis. Right? Even though Hashem sees, everything. This is what we said before. Obviously, Hashem sees everything from the beginning to the end. V'yada ki lo yo'il zeh v'yikalkelu achar kach b'maaseh ha'egel. And part of this is that Hashem saw that we were going to mess up, right? Because right after Matan Torah, 40 days later, we have Chet ha'egel, the biggest fall of all time, because it was from the greatest heights to the lowest of lows. Omnam ro'eh ne'eman, but Moshe Rabbeinu, our faithful shepherd, chashav pen ve'ulai yo'il zot. He thought maybe this will help. Maybe I can make it a little bit easier. The fall a little bit less harsh, or the climb back up a little bit less hard. V'kablu Torah lemala mina midos, and they would receive the Torah, again connecting to the first idea, above the emotional attributes. Kedei shalo yiplu mimadregatam, right? Because that's what he wanted. He wanted to enable us not to fall. V'im shaya ma shaya achar kach, and even though Chet HaEgel was going to happen afterwards, af al pi chen ho'il takanat Moshe Rabbeinu b'ma she'osif yom echad midato shehi yom ha'miyuchas. It helped. Moshe Rabbeinu helped by adding this day called Yom HaMiyuchas. Asher b'Yom HaKippurim nitratza lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu ve'amar salachti v'natan lahem luchos shnios beratzon tov. So beautiful, right? What happens? We fall in Chet HaEgel, right? And then Moshe Rabbeinu goes up and he davens for us another 40 days, right? But that comes between Tammuz, right? The Shvas Arba Tammuz was when Moshe Rabbeinu comes down. That's the Chet HaEgel day, okay? And then between Shvas Arba Tammuz and another 40 days, which is the Rosh Chodesh Elul, essentially, right? There's this 40-day period that Moshe Rabbeinu is davening, and Hashem, he forgives us, but he says an angel will take you, will continue on. Our relationship changed. It's erased. The sin is erased. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, no, it can't be like that. And he davens for another 40 days. And the next 40 days brings us to Yom Kippur. And that is the place where Hashem gives us the 13 midos of Rachamim, where Hashem gives us the ability to fix the relationship and to come back and still be, in this love relationship. Not just that it's forgiven, but that we grow from it. We actually got closer through it. Like a fight that a husband and wife have, right? Chas v'shalom. But there are times that you could say yeah, whatever, fine, it's okay. And then there are times where the fight takes you to such a deep place that you actually get closer from it. And that's what happens on Yom Kippur. And that's why this day, Yom HaMiyuchas, connects to Yom Kippur. Asher lazeh ramuz Yom HaMiyuchas shosif Moshe Rabbeinu alav hashalom midato. And this is why Moshe Rabbeinu added this day from his knowledge, from his wisdom, from his understanding of what's going to happen and what Am Yisrael need. Shechal Yom HaKippurim bo bayom, that it falls on the same day as Yom Kippur. V'Yom HaKippurim hu olam hatshuva, because Yom Kippur represents the whole world of tshuva, returning. Olam habina kedita v'zohar v'zeu pulat tzadik l'chaim, and that's really what Moshe Rabbeinu gave us. He opened the gates of tshuva for us with this day, with Yom HaMiyuchas. So I'll give us all a bracha. Wasn't that an amazing, fantastic ride? Okay, so Baruch Hashem, we're so happy. This day is it's its own thing. Obviously, it's also a springboard, to the coming days. And Bezrat Hashem, we should be blessed that through the da'as and the bina of this, of this Yom HaMiyuchas, that we enter into the season of Kabbalah Satorah, knowing how special we are to Hashem, knowing how essential we are, that Moshe Rabbeinu helped enable, he was the shadchan, between Am Yisrael and Hashem, And he opened this doorway to like an even a deeper level of relationship between us and Hashem. So may we receive the Torah this year with even more understanding of Hashem's compassion for us that comes through Moshe Rabbeinu, and how much he always wants to continue to have a relationship with us. Be'ezrat Hashem. Thank you. Wow, that was exactly 1 hour. I literally pressed stop. 1:00:00.
And Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.